You're alive, everybody. Good afternoon and good morning, wherever you're at in the world. My name is Nate the Lawyer. Today, I have, as every Friday, we have the lawyer panel here on Laid Back News with Steve Gosney from SteveGosney.com, Southern Law Steve from the YouTube channel, Southern Law, and Legal Vices from the aptly named YouTube channel, Legal Vices. So we have some very interesting stories to talk to you about today, from babies not being well treated to dead bodies being not treated well, and some other various stories that we'll hit on today. So obviously, we're going to start off today with the Screen Actors Guild strike. So here we go. Screen Actors Guild. Now, so those of you who don't know what's going on, before in Hollywood, what happens is, let's say if you're an actor and you're on a show like Baywatch. Why am I saying Baywatch? Because I was watching like a marathon of Baywatch yesterday. So I'm going to use Baywatch. Yes, I like Baywatch. But anyway, so when an actor acted in those shows, you got paid twice. You got paid for the time that you acted, and then you got residuals, because what happens is the networks would sell those shows to other networks and you'd have them running in syndication. So you'd get kind of two checks. You get that syndication check, but you'd also get a check for when you initially did it. But now, because of streaming, when something is streamed, it essentially killed syndication. So now, like when Netflix does a show, it just leaves it on its own platform forever, and it's not selling it to other places. So now the actors have lost all that residual money. And there's obviously some other things happening too, where, for instance, like for writers, even though there are more shows being written, the writers who would also get residuals in that same way now only get paid for the 8 episodes and don't get paid for any residuals. So allegedly, actors who are making about $50,000 a year for working 40 weeks, writers and actors who are making about $50,000 for working 40 weeks a year are now only getting maybe 8 weeks worth of work and are making less than $10,000 to $15,000 per year. So now the issue is that they're saying is that the studios have to somehow change the way they think about compensating both actors and writers, because the business model has changed. And obviously, too, the studios want to start employing AI more. And there's a fear that if the studios start employing AI to write scripts and to even generate actors, then that's going to actually take more money out of the pocket of both the actors and the studios. So what do you guys think about the acting strike? Is this another millionaires versus millionaires, or what? Steve Gosney.
Well, I will. I'll start by saying I am all for it. They all need to go on strike so that way they can watch more of us on Rumble and YouTube and all these other formats, because we don't need actors and we don't need scriptwriters, because we're just saying what we think. Second, I would suggest that any Hollywood moguls out there that are watching this and agree with me, I just completed the draft of My Summer Friend, which would make a great movie. So I'm willing to accept lots of money for The Summer Friend, which will be out soon on SteveGosney.com only, where you can get all my stuff, because they want to rob you. All of these places want to rob you of your talent, including these, it's like they want to suck you dry for all that you have and then pay you pennies, So I think the whole thing needs to collapse, and we need to come back to individuals communicating like we do here, directly to the people, and on free speech friendly platforms. That's my position.
What do you think, Steve?
I need to know if this is going to affect Predator 11. That's important to me, and honestly, I'm sick of this. It's all too commercialized. The product placements and endorsements. Oh, sorry, this is a delicious Diet Mountain Dew. It's not going to affect me, man. I haven't seen so much stuff on that you can watch online. I don't know how they'll work it out. The only thing that worries me a little bit is artificial intelligence. The intelligence part seems to be the opposite of what's on TV. So maybe they're working on an artificial idiocy thing to do the sitcoms and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I like writers. Hopefully they can get it all worked out. But I don't care, I guess, because I'm more like what Steve said, which is I like hearing what people who are invested in things in real life have to say. It doesn't even interest me to go watch movies about real things if it's too dramatized and stuff like that. I'd rather watch real events if I can find it. Just if Keith Morrison can be exempted from this and Dateline, then I'm happy.
Vices. Do you have a SAG card? Are you on strike now?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, what I think, I mean, great, go on strike if you want. I mean, who really cares? There's such an abundance of entertainment out there, and that's how this whole reality TV thing was born. Was by them going on strike the last time or the time before that. But I think it's stupid to go on strike while the writers are on strike. You want to do it right, you wait till the day after the writers resolve their strike, and then you go on strike. Don't go at the same time, because like you go on the same, who cares? They're already on strike. You get nothing out of this.
That's true.
Strategically, it's stupid, I think.
Well, now don't forget, like, all these productions have ceased. Like Deadpool 2 and a lot of the movies have ceased, and now also actors can't now promote movies and things of that nature too. So, but we'll see, because this is the last time this happened was 60 years ago. Ronald Reagan was the president of the Screen Actors Guild the last time this has happened, where the actors and writers struck at the same time, and they got a pretty good resolve. So we will see. So it seems like we don't really care about the actors because none of us are in the guild. So let's move on to the next story, which is
quick.
So we have now Trump, for some reason, it's like all over the place. So now there is a new grand jury, 2 grand juries in Georgia that are going to allegedly indict President Trump and some people in his team on various charges. So the grand juries have been sworn in and they are now doing their work. Now, all this stems from this conversation that I'm about to play, that Trump, that when Trump called Georgia's Brad Raffensperger, right after the election, when they called Georgia for Biden, and Biden had won by about 11,000 votes. So this is allegedly the key piece of evidence that's going to be used at the grand jury.
We have won this election in Georgia based on all of this, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, Brad. I mean, having a correct, the people of Georgia are angry, and these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even. And the people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan, Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
Well, but have they moved? Have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have, not even close. You're off by hundreds of thousands of votes. You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk, but they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can. Both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. So Brad, what are we going to do?
So now the charges that they're allegedly contemplating: solicitation of election fraud, making false statements to state and local government bodies, conspiracy to commit election fraud, racketeering, which is committing or attempting to commit or conspiring to commit, or intimidating or coercing others to commit things like election fraud, violations of the oath of office, and involvement in election-related threats. So these are the possible charges. A lot of it is based off this phone call. So what do you guys think? Is this just another Trump witch hunt, or does this one have some legs to it?
It's another Trump witch hunt, and it's ridiculous. I'm really, the Democrats are trying to destroy this country. If they succeed in one of these fraudulent shots in these big city urban environments that are absolutely controlled by the D's, and they actually put his scalp and put him in prison, they are asking to destroy this country. To what end are they trying? They're moving forward on this. He can't ask questions about an election. He can't discuss with people about what's going on. How does this guy on the other end of a phone, some guy named Ryan, he knows for damn sure that none of these ballot machines were tampered with and nothing was done. He can say that in his little office, in some little office in Georgia. Meanwhile, there's this huge, all these ballot machines are going out all over the country, and he knows for sure that that's true. We just trust. I trust everything the government says to me. Oh yeah, I trust all of this. The problem is their problem is there has been no effort to assure the people who have questions that these systems are valid and strong, and the lack of that reassurance reinforces the opinion that these things there's problems, and that is absolutely not only is that destructive to our democracy, but targeting the main opposition candidate is third world banana republic stuff that we would condemn if it happened in another country. So, but that's just my humble opinion.
Steve, well, let me introduce our good friend Joe. Good Logic, you just come in at a perfect time, Joe. So we're talking about the possible.
I'm sorry, I was standing in union on strike with my SAC brothers and sisters. Stay strong, stay strong.
So what do you think about this impending? I'm not sure if you heard everything about the impending Trump indictment in Georgia.
Yeah, I heard. I'm familiar with it. I was listening to you as you were playing that clip there, and when I hear the clip, it's even less close to the line of committing a crime than I recall it being.
Yeah, come on.
So, I mean, it's not even clear. It's what this is it's pretty evident by now what all of these indictments are. That they're not even hoping to get a conviction. This has nothing to do with a hope to get a conviction, because it's a joke. I mean, it's ridiculous. Unless they figure that maybe they'll luck out on some venue where enough people hate him that they can fill a pool with people who are looking to just throw him in jail. But barring that, this is just a matter of we want to stack as many indictments as possible to destroy his credibility as legitimate presidential candidate. That's all it is. And this way we can go out there, and whoever the nominee is, whether it's Biden or Biden steps down and gives way to Newsom or Whitmer or whoever else they feel is the heir apparent to the DNC, that they want to basically have the opportunity that his opponent will have will be able to go out there and say, look at all these crimes he's committed and he's being charged with, and the hope I think is that people will figure if there's enough smoke, there's fire there, that he really is someone who is willing to break the law to obtain power. That's what all these things are, or once in power, that he's going to break the law, and that he's the threat to the democracy that they've been labeling him as ever since he rode down the escalator. So that's all this is about to me, because it doesn't make sense. I mean, think about it. What did he just say there, right? What did he say there? He's like, find me the votes. He's talking about how the votes are have been ripped up and manipulated. Clearly, that's what his mindset is. Now, some people might argue and say he's crazy. They might say, a lot of people I'm sure think that the dude's totally right and he's spot on. And you'll have the other half of the country say he's insane. And maybe it's more than half. Maybe at this point, more and more people are thinking that what happened in 2020 was legitimate. That doesn't matter. The point is, when you're looking in December of 2020, when he's having that conversation, and he's like, there's a lot of manipulation here. So just go back and find me the votes that that I know are there, and it's like, so that you're gonna try and throw him in, try and charge him. The only possible explanation is they want, to my mind at least, unless you guys have a better theory that you can convince me of, that is that they want to make him look so guilty that no one in the middle will consider voting for him.
Except that I think that they hate, it's a win-win because they hate the country and they want to destroy it. So this is, if they are successful, then they will basically destroy the country. And or they'll retain power, in which case they have power and they'll destroy it from within. So it's a win-win.
So I want to be clear on what you're saying, because I said stuff like that before, that they hate the country. And I think I think we need to be really clear about this, because that sounds like something that a lot of people have a hard time accepting. They hate the country. And I'll explain to you, and I don't disagree with you entirely, but I think that it can't be stated quite that simply. I think that
it's a complex thought, and I'll clarify. I'll make it a little more clear.
Okay.
They hate freedom. They don't want people speaking freely. They want everybody to conform to the party line. They want one-party government. They don't want any opposition, and any opposition should be shut down and silenced violently, criminally, and in any way possible. So that is an antithesis to the founding basis of this country, where we debate things, we discuss things, we resolve things through fair elections, and we have a free speech, and we can talk about things even when we're in a minority.
Right, but my issue was not with really the overall sentiment. It was really with the definition of your pronoun they, because we all know how most pronouns are. No, but I'm serious. I'm really serious, because when you say they, I think you're talking about like 1% of the people who are. I agree with you, but I think that applies to 1% of the people.
I don't know
who are opposing. What I'm saying, let me explain to you. I think the other 99% don't care enough to fight it, and they've been triggered into really hating him and thinking and believing the 1% who are controlling. When I say the 1%, I'm talking about the elites at the top who basically are interested in their own power and their own. And I think that they have tens of millions of useful idiots who basically have been triggered into believing that Trump is the threat that he's been portrayed to be. I don't think, for example, your typical leftist genuinely hates freedom, hates America. They've been triggered into believing what the messaging from the top, which really do only care about their own power and don't care about America. They've been triggered by them into believing that Donald Trump is a threat to America. So that's my point. So they feel like that, this is for the greater good, and we have to do this because we have to stop this evil force. I don't think your typical leftist that you meet on the street, even an Antifa guy, I don't attribute to malice that which I can attribute to stupidity. And I think there's definitely some level of malice amongst they.
Without a difference, though, Joe, because if you have one person controlling everything, and and half the population follows that one person, it doesn't matter. They are empowered by the nature of our republic to and I think that the people who want to do that are motivated primarily by hate, and they hate whomever, the other, so much, and it gives them added puffery. It gives them an ego boost, like to a moral superiority, to feel that the person that they're arguing with or they're against is so evil that they are pure and good, and they hate that person so much that they'll vote for somebody who is absolutely senile, who's an empty suit, and let the bureaucracies run roughshod over the rights in opposition, because they would rather vote against the person they hate than actually have something constructive that would rebuild this country and respectfully disagree and honor the results of and have fair elections, have free speech, have good debates. So I think there's a lot of people in this country that are basically grounded, motivated by hate. Now, they don't think so. They think that they are all love, peace, and understanding, and that the haters are the other people, but they're coming at that from a moral superiority position.
Oh, I want to get, hold on, but before you respond, well, Joe, after you respond, let's get Southern Law and Vice's, because Southern Law is shaking his head because it seems like he has something to say. So
I'm still processing.
Go ahead, Joe.
I think it's me that affects Southern Law, because he was talking so much until I came in here So like I'll just we'll try and make this easier for you here.
Yeah, so I've always been on the show pre-striking in favor of the But listen to you guys, I think I always look for the middle, and I think there is part of that. There is a component of what Steve is saying of people who you can call it hating the country, and I take it as a broader position that they hate the fundamental things that comprise Western civilization. And while the United States isn't obviously the oldest part of that, it has been, at least historically, it's kind of the highest ideal of it. Even if we didn't execute it right, we've had these lofty ideals. We're more of an idea than a tradition and stuff. And so destroying it here is important to reform it to what you want it to be. And those are people that I think the nation is, as a representation of, say, Western culture, is what they hate and what they want to destroy. And then you have this group at the top that wants to make money, have power, control, and do those things. And hate is it has always been, right, a great weapon. And it is not exclusive to the left. The right has had its share of it, but it is the primary weapon of the left now, because the debate by intellect and reason and things, it's just out the window. It's completely out the window.
And to follow and to support what you're saying, I think it's not that they're just the greatest ideal, but also the most significant, strongest, influential factor, military factor, economic factor in promoting these Western ideals. So in that sense, we are the great Satan, of promoting Western civilization, and that's why bringing America down to those who are against those types of ideals. And I think I think you're right that we are the prime target. So
there's some irony in that, I think, in that a lot of the people importing themselves into the country or being imported across the border come from places that don't share all these new progressive values. Now they are useful to these people who want to destroy, overwhelm the institutions, create chaos and things like that through increasing population beyond what you can absorb. Although a lot of them, because my family is half Hispanic, a lot of these people do not share this situation of hating family units and all the nonsense that's the progressives are Big Ten in one way, even though they're the most intolerant group on the planet right now, in that they want you to conform in every single way. You can't be just liberal here on abortion and economics and not buy one single thing that they say that's destructive toward a family unit. They demand complete conformity. And they're good at it, but the immigrants right now are in sometimes the places where you get only the pushback you're going to get. If you look at Michigan, you had that town now that has an all-Muslim council, and they voted to not allow pride flags on government buildings. Not you want to put it on your business, you put it on your business. You want to put it somewhere else, you want to put it somewhere else. But only authorized flags could be flown. The United States flag and a couple of others. And they said, we're not trying to discriminate against somebody. And of course, now the lack of computing power in a progressive brain says, but they're diverse. They're not typical Western culture. How could they not support everything that we possibly think? And called the Muslims up there every possible name that you would normally call, say, a Christian or maybe a Jewish person. So, and those people are saving that community from being completely overdriven by these absolutely radical people. So, to some degree, immigrants are what we have here to bolster the culture. That what's left of what we have are people like that.
I want to ask you a question, Steve, when you get a chance.
Right. Let me go to you, Joe, because you were next. So go ahead.
Well, I want to ask you, because you just inspired a radical thought that I've never had before, like literally never had. And I need to preface it by asking you whether do you think that these people who are streaming across the border, as you just said, they all are, I don't think that they're leftist and
they're
ideology.
Conservative. Well,
they're very conservative.
Yeah, just as a fact check, the Democrats have overplayed their hand, because unfortunately what happened is that a lot of these people who are coming across the border, like what happened in Florida with DeSantis, happen to be Christian Catholic conservatives. They're anti-abortion. But what happens is the Democrats have been trying to push they're racist and they don't want you in the country. But now they come in and when they vote, they happen to vote conservative. So now it's kind of like, well, why are you voting for the people who hate you?
I'm in the same mindset, which is why my radical thought that I just had is, the Republicans, seeing as how there's no way to possibly show how poor leftist ideology and policies are, that is any more significant than actually giving them what they want.
Well,
right?
I mean, there's an important distinction that needs to be made, though, with as far as immigrants go. They all have the same goal. Wherever they want to get to, the U.S. is, in their minds, better than where they're coming from. But you have two different groups. You have the political immigrants, the ones that this Nate's talking about, the conservatives, the one that want the better life, they want the better family, they want the safer existence. And then you have the economic immigrants who've listened to the liberal line, to the Democratic line. Come here, you get free education, get free money, get welfare money. The U.S. government will give you free money. We'll take you in. They're two different groups, and I think you have to make an important distinction between the two.
Well, my question was, would it not be a really interesting thing if the Republican Party came out and said, all these people who streamed across the border, we need to give them citizenship now. Instead of saying we're getting rid of them, whoever comes in here, let's give them citizenship and watch them vote. And watch. I know that it sounds crazy. I know everyone's looking at me like you're out of your freaking mind.
You're
Joe.
out of your mind.
That's Ronald Reagan. What are you talking about? That's not Ronald. That's Ronald Reagan. That's what Ronald Reagan was saying.
I'll tell you right now. Here's the thought process that I have. Here's why I come to that. Cubans hate the socialism concept. Yeah, Venezuelans hate socialism. I think that in Central America, I think they're all about family values. They're all about free capitalism. And what I'm saying to you is, I think that, as Nate pointed out, I think the left overplayed their hand in letting these millions of people stream across the border every single year. And I'm not saying the idea needs to be fleshed out more. I'm simply brainstorming here that if that were to happen, I actually think that you'll see millions and millions of more people voting red than voting blue as a result of that. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like economic suicide, or accepting that burden on ourselves. And the problem, and the only reason that this thought even crosses my mind, is because the value of money has been so devalued based on the fact that we're willing to piss away $113 million on $113 billion on a country that we don't even have a treaty with. So if that's the low value of money, I say to myself, why not? Is it really that crazy to say, you know what? We'll bring in all these people to the Republican Party. If they became the party that was advocating for that, I guarantee you the Democrats would find a way to close the border. They would definitely find a way to close that border.
Let me get Steve Gosney in here. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I don't know about that. I think you need to think on that a little more. And come up with,
I think so too. I agree.
This went too far.
As someone who's had a spouse go through the immigration process, you need to think about that a little bit.
Well, but I would say, I wanted to tag on to what Southern Law was saying a little bit earlier. And that is that they want, the left, and this group of whatever we want to call this woke religion that we're dealing with in this country and across the West. It's not just that they want you to follow the party line, which is I think what he said there. But I would go further than that. They want you to buy into whatever lie is the party's lie of the day. And that basically you don't buy into a set of values that exists in stasis. You buy into a lie that is ever changing. So that if tomorrow they come up with a new policy that's 180 degrees opposed to what they've been before, you're supposed to snap and salute and change. And now you buy into the new lie, because once you swallow that lie, it's like drinking a milkshake. You've swallowed that lie and it's hard, but now you can drink the next 10 milkshakes full of lies, and that's the grounding of tyranny. So I really think that we need to follow Alexander Solzhenitsyn's prescription when he came and he said, speak not of lies, don't speak lies, always struggle to attain the truth, because what the pill of poison that they are trying to deliver is to get you to buy into the lie, whatever the lie is. Eat this pill, and then once you've done that, well, now you'll believe this lie. It's like 1984. That's
exactly what I was going to say, Steve.
We're going to crank you down some more.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Steve, when I was pointing furiously at you a second ago, because it's the same. I always tell people, any liberal Democrat who says that the Republican Party or Donald Trump is like 1984 has never read 1984. Newspeak, all the political correctness, all the historical revision, all of this is straight out of Orwell's 1984. I used to joke and say that if you took 1984 and changed everything and just called it North Korea, it would be exactly what you're looking at in North Korea. But that is what the United States is becoming, and to a large degree has become. This new generation that whatever the Big Brother tells them is what they believe. They have to jump on the bandwagon. You revise history. You remove all of the stuff you disagreed with. You create a new scenario. You educate the children from the beginning. You have your 2 minutes of hate on whatever talk show you're on, and it's 1984.
Just to be clear, Trump, just so everybody understands, Trump has his 3 indictments right now. The New York indictment, which I also think is a joke. You have the indictment from the feds, and now you have this impending indictment. But sometimes I feel like I'm always trapped between two sides. Because as you guys know, I go on liberal shows, and then I'm here on this conservative piece, and I always hear the same thing from both sides, right? The same thing on liberals. The conservatives and Republicans are just trying to destroy this country. And then I go over here, they're trying to destroy the country. And it's fascinating, because I think if you just take each issue on its own, because for instance, I just had somebody the other day saying the Hunter Biden stuff was a witch hunt. And it was and I'm like, even all the evidence? And they're like, oh, no, it's just a witch hunt. They're after Biden. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, it's obvious. Just look at the damn evidence, right? And I always feel that whenever you talk about whichever side. And with this Trump thing, to be fair, to say there's no there, I think is a stretch. I think there is something here, but to believe he's going to get convicted on this, I just don't know. If I'm in an election, I call the election person and say, hey, I need 10 more votes to win. Find me those 10 votes. I think I might be charged with a crime. Maybe we can say that, but it all depends on the interpretation of that conversation. So, but with Trump, I think Trump is one of those things.
But once it comes down to the interpretation, how can he be guilty?
But just let me finish this point. I think he could be guilty as a matter of law. But just let me finish what I'm saying. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think Biden can be is a senile, someone who can barely talk. But people are still going to vote for him. Just like they voted for that mayor who was on crack. And after he got caught on crack on tape, you know what? They voted him back in as mayor again, right? And I think the same is true with Biden. And I think the same is true as Trump. No matter what the evidence, no matter what comes to the plate, people are going to just call it a witch hunt, don't care about the evidence, and just move forward. Same thing with Hunter Biden. Same thing with the mayor and the same thing with Trump. So I'm going to hold my judgment until I actually see the full evidence.
Nate, that's called having your eyes open. Realizing that all politicians are corrupt. You cannot tell me that someone who is going to spend $40-60 billion to get elected to a job that pays $400,000 a year, that wants power that bad, is not corrupt in some fundamental way from the beginning.
Yeah, these are $1 billion jobs, right? The president of the United States is a $1 billion job. So, that's how much you have to probably spend to get to that office. So I don't expect anybody in there to have clean hands. I'm just hoping whoever does get inside there does what's best for the country. And that's all you can do.
Nate, you're talking about, you kind of swim on both lanes, right? And but the thing is I really do, I've heard you and I've been on with you a bit. And I really do think that, you are seeking the truth and you're trying to establish what the truth is. And that's the poll star that is guiding you. I don't, now maybe you're ideological like all of us in certain ways, but ultimately the truth matters to you. Now, the thing is that these deep states and these tyrannical people, the truth, they are unhinged from the truth. In fact, they are opposed to the truth. They don't want us talking across the aisle. They don't want talking to our friends. They want the media and their megaphone for propagandas to be piped into our ears, and we're supposed to follow along and not question, not talk about it with each other, and that's exactly what we should be doing. As citizens, we need to be talking to each other, doing the best we can, resolving things honestly, respectfully, without ad hominem attacks, And through this dialogue, we try to guide this ship of state to the truth. But the problem is that these tyrants, the people in these powers of media, government, and academia, are putting a bullhorn to the public's ears and saying, buy into whatever the narrative du jour is, and don't talk politics with your friends.
Yeah.
Which is it was. So what means that means you're only going to hear it from these media sources that want to divide us.
I'll tell you this. My before we move on to the next story, my grand awakening with this whole thing was beyond a Taylor, but really. Because now I'm a misogynist, anti-trans conservative. That's what I've been called on the left.
Congratulations!
And when I'm here, I'm an anti-Trump TDS, so it's fine. But now I'm all this other stuff on the left side, and I'm a misogynist for one main reason, right? So I have the largest video on YouTube about the U.S. women's soccer team. The largest video, for over almost 5 million people to watch my video, and that video was just laying out the facts that occurred at the trial. So the facts that occurred was that they were being paid more. The whole thing that they were talking about was a BS lie that was being pushed by the media. The whole story, right? And I just laid out literally the facts. That's why the video did so well. And for that video, no one challenged the facts in that video. Nobody went to that video and said you were wrong on this point, because I just used here's the damn evidence from the court, right? That both sides agreed to. I was just labeled a misogynist, and I hated women. And so when you guys talk about them trying to destroy the country and the way you guys are talking about it, I'm so sympathetic to it because it's happened to me. Like, I know what you guys are saying. Damn the facts, right? Matter of fact, they just literally got an award for their heroic fight against equal pay, everyone knowing that it was a total lie. So, and you're right, it's the media, it's the left-wing media that's trying to push it down our throat that they were being paid unequally, and that that was something that was true, when everyone knows from court documents that it wasn't true. So, so that's my personal back and forth, is that what you guys are saying is absolutely true, but it's just hard for me just to accept it, because I just have the hope for the country, if you know what I mean. I want to have that hope that we can all find a way. You know what I'm saying?
That's why we're here and we're speaking out and we're trying to be truthful and we're on the thing. We all, hope springs eternal, and hope. But one thing that we really need to, if the one thing that I would ask of anybody watching these shows is to eliminate as much of the lying from yourself and from your ears, try to seek the truth in all things. And I mean, if we can't agree on that, see, that's the problem. I think that when we're talking about this woke mob religion that we're dealing with, they're antithetical to truth. And they think
you have to believe that you're being lied to first before you can accept that. And so many people will not accept that this person or that person is lying to them, that they may be being lied to.
They buy into this thing that truth is all relative, and your truth and my truth, and you can't understand me because I'm different race or sex or whatever. And that is a lie. The fact
I'm very much a platonic form. Like there are absolutes. I'm not a relativist. I fully buy into the platonic form idea. Those are the two books. 1984 is one I recommend, and the other is the Screw Tape Letters, because C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters is a textbook for how you walk someone down an aisle to being blindfolded, your ears stuffed, and being led astray by whoever it is. It's a textbook article.
Vice, when you were talking about the how this is like people who never read 1984, it reminded me of a clip from Ronald Reagan where he was talking about the origin of fascism and where it will come from and how it's most likely to come to this country. And I actually, if you allow me, Nate, I have a 30-second clip. It's a 30-second clip of Ronald Reagan spelling out exactly what you were describing there.
So you took my fact checking and threw it in found the video.
It took me like 30 seconds.
Here it is.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
There you go.
Interesting. Joe, that's a good find. Well, listen, let me get these two super chats before we move on to the next one. All right, this one says, never forget politics comes from the Greek poly, for mini and ticks for blood-sucking parasites. Mini and ticks, blood-sucking parasites. Little Rock for $50. Thank you, Little Rock. Just got out of a 30B6 deposition with a trucking company. I have a headache and needed a break, so I turned into the Great Attorney Podcast. Boom.
So let me say this: if you're on the plaintiff's personal injury side, I don't feel sorry for your headache because everybody knows trucking company insurance pays big, baby.
Oh yeah. That's why I just give it the $50 super.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
You're heading to mediation next.
Let me tell you something.
Let
Let me tell you something. My speculation on this, just knowing nothing more than what we see on the screen right here, right now. If he's saying he got a headache from it and he needs a break, that means, and he also has the money for a $50 super chat, he's a defendant, not a plaintiff.
All right. We'll see if Little Rock chimes in on this one.
Little Rock's a friend of the show, so we love you, Little Rock. Thank you again for your journey.
Well, we got to
mediation, baby. Mediation in August. Come on. Come on now.
Thanks again, Little Rock. And thanks for everybody who's super chatting. Thank you guys for all your support. Now, we're going on to the left eating its own. So we're just talking. So this is the next piece.
I told Nate, hold up. Plaintiff's attorney, baby. I told you, Joe. I smelled that out, baby. I've been there before. I've been there before.
He was right.
Mediation in August, check in September.
I should realize the fact that he identified the deposition as a 30B6.
Exactly.
That he must be
2/3 for you, 1/3 for me.
He must
got to reel it in.
My bad.
Just reel it in.
Bad read. Thank you for clarifying, Little Rock.
So now we're talking about protest. So CNN has gotten in a little bit of trouble, and they got in trouble for this report on Dylan Mulvaney. So let me now share
something less controversial.
The 2-minute clip of why CNN has gotten in trouble, and they're asking for this minority reporter to be fired. So here it is. Let me put this up on the screen. This is the report.
We are talking a lot these days, it seems like, about culture wars. I mean, just that last conversation you and Sarah were having kind of dovetails all into this, because everyone seems to be taking sides over everything. And it really got to the point when we went out to the street to talk to people just to get their ideas about how much confusion and how much anger has been caused by this Bud Light controversy. Just listen to the people on the street who were sort of upset that this has gotten taken so far out of hand.
It's quite simple. People just don't want it shoved down their throat.
No Bud Light, because it's like, I have grandchildren. We don't need to put that in the young kids' heads.
We had one guy who said, I refuse to drink that anymore. One guy. And everybody else in the bar kind of rolled their eyes at him.
Yeah, America's really split on a lot of topics, whether it comes to voting. But this Bud Light really seems to send a chasm right on the middle in terms of talking to folks. We went to Nashville. We even talked to a bar in Chicago. One bar was telling us basically they're not going to serve it because they don't like the way Dylan Mulvaney was treated after this whole controversy.
Turn up the volume a little bit.
Person that they were.
I'll turn it up. Sorry. No, it's hi. Sorry.
Sponsor and go along with Bud Light. They didn't like how Bud Light didn't stand by him after all this. Of course, he would not serve Bud Light in his bar. He shot up a case of Bud Light. At this point, though, Kate, we went back to that bar a couple days ago. Bud Light's being served again. But now we're starting to see those sales have really dropped off more than 28%.
Okay, so that is the report that got this CNN anchor in trouble with the woke mob. And they're essentially saying that they did this intentionally and that this guy needs to be fired. What
Didn't
say?
Stand by him.
What do
dun,
you,
dun, dun.
Now for those of you who are listening who may have missed it, he mistakenly referred to Dylan Mulvaney twice as him instead of her. Now, also, I got to play this clip because the reason why this is supposedly so crazy is because the people who are pushing this believe that if you misgender a trans person, it is violence.
And next, Secretary Castro, I want to bring in Shay Diamond, a singer-songwriter from Los Angeles. She currently supports Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
That's just Flip Wilson.
It's Shea Diamond.
Shea Diamond.
Put that on the record.
Okay. It's on the record. Thank you.
That's just
honey,
Flip
it's
Wilson.
Violence to misgender or to alter a name of a trans person. So let's always get that right first.
Go. What do you think? CNN, should this guy be fired for misgendering Dylan Mulvaney?
No. There's intentional meanness and there's accidental use of words. Again, I'm very much in the Jordan Peterson camp. Is if you ask me to say these are my pronouns or whatever, please use them. I'm more than happy to. But if the government's telling me I have to use those words, then I'm adamantly opposed to it. One of my dear friends that I grew up next to my entire life transitioned male to female, and I told her now, but at the time, the first time I met after not seeing them for 6 years, when we were leaving, I said goodbye, and then I dead named him. Oof. And she snapped her head at me and said, look, this is new to me. It's going to take me time. If I do this, it's not intentional. It's just because I'm not used to, the switches haven't all flipped in my head yet. But I mean, this guy clearly didn't do that out of any animosity or any intentional act to demean someone. Not that I would care anyway, but I got bigger things to worry about.
Up today.
It's here is just so we can have the full context here. Here is CNN's apology. Now, CNN didn't apologize. Now, that was one of the big issues because no one at CNN apologized during the show or even during that day because no one even realized it had happened. So here's the apology on the next day from CNN. Here they go.
Wrap up today, we do want to make an important note. Yesterday in a segment about transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, who was featured in Bud Light's recent campaign, she was mistakenly referred to by the wrong pronoun. And CNN aims to honor individuals' ways of identifying themselves, and we apologize for that error.
All right.
Mountains and molehills.
when I hear this conversation, all I think as I'm listening to the whining and complaining is, dude, that's it.
Well, you know what I think the problem is that listen, I don't want to be an asshole and not call you what if you tell me your name a pimp named Slickback, I'll call you a pimp named Slickback. Okay, whatever. That it tells more about you than it does me. But with this whole changing genders and all this other stuff, it's confusing. It's so confusing that you remember the singer Demi Lovato. She was saying, "Don't call me she, call me they," and they were calling her they, and it got so confusing for her. She's like, "Well, no, I want to be called she again." It's like, how am I supposed to know, right? Yesterday it was they, today it's she, tomorrow may be he. Who knows? And for 99% of the time that I've been alive, I've been calling people by their gender and been getting it right. He, she, it's not been a problem. So I think the problem is that even if you do want to make this change, you have to allow people to understand that we're not going to get it right all the time. We're not going to get it right. And if we get it wrong, it's not because we're trying to insult you. We're getting it wrong because this is something new for all of us. But again, I think the overreaction to try to get somebody canceled and lose their job and stuff over something so silly is ridiculous. And if you think about it, this is a black man, allegedly, if we're talking about diversity and trying to be all inclusive, this is a black man who they're trying to get fired for saying this, right? Whatever happened to that? Now, all of a sudden, even though he's black, he should be cast to the side to the, what I'm saying?
You're just upset that the intersectionality pyramid has now passed you by. There's people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Steve. Sorry, Nate, we've moved past black now.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
That's their narrative. Their narrative is he's black. He should be protected. Affirmative actions, but now it's firing him because he called him a him instead of a she.
He should have said, I'm gay, so I don't have to apologize. Then it would have been over.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
I don't know. My take on this is very different. My take on
dude.
My first thought is dude.
You're here to give us the take. You're here to give us your take.
My first thought is dude. But yeah. If it's someone you know in real life, like you have a personal connection with this individual, okay, and they transition, and you want to be respectful to them because whatever, that's fine. When we're talking about someone you don't know, some public figure who's trying to make a spectacle specifically,
and acting the damn fool,
and specifically trying to make a spectacle about their transitioning, meaning I'm not talking. I'm going to distinguish between someone who genuinely has some sort of emotional or mental perspectives, which lead and have sustained enough osmosis from the culture to accept that this is, a possibility and something that they're actually in the wrong body or whatever it is. Okay, fine. But when someone is making that their identity, do you make the fact that you're a dude your identity? No. No one does. No one. The only people who make their gender their identity are people who are playing identity politics. So when someone specifically is making a whole big thing that this is the definition of me and this is what signifies me, if someone mistakenly calls me a Christian, a black, an Asian, whatever, do I get offended by that? Would you get offended by that if someone accidentally thought you were Jewish? Would you be like, oh my God, I can't believe you wouldn't think twice about it? You just correct them and you wouldn't be bothered by it at all. The people who are bothered by it are the people who are trying to be controlling and saying, no, you must play along with this fantasy, otherwise you're an evil person, I'm going to try to have you canceled. And those are the people who specifically should be called by in my opinion, should be called by the wrong thing, because otherwise you're caving into this ridiculous ideology. If it's someone who's actually going through whatever issues they're going through and you don't want to be a jerk to them, their friend, I totally get it. You are kind of a jerk if you're just trampling all over them when they're dealing with these psychological and emotional issues. But if it's some public figure who's trying to make a deal about the fact that they are now reborn as some new gender, that now is someone who's trying to make a political statement. And if you actually cater to it, you're validating that yes, you have speciality because you made some stupid political statement. And to me, that's wrong. I can't, and I don't think it's hate. I think they're making a political statement, and your refusal to accept it is a political statement.
I have a question for you, Joe. And this is not a facetious question. This is a real question in the context of what we're talking about. Fast forward 5 months from now, you're walking down the street somewhere in New York. Someone you've never met before looks at you and says, "Merry Christmas."
Mm-hmm.
What's your reaction? Do you want them canceled? Do you want them to lose their livelihood and to lose everything they stood for?
And that, by the way, that's happened to me thousands of times. I'll say, "Hey, happy holidays." So and I take the sentiment for what it's meant, which is they're not assigning to me a religion. They're just being warm and gracious and expressing in the way that they know how. And I say, "Oh, okay, happy holidays." I say, then I take it not as an offense, but as a compliment that they're being, warm, nice person. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that's the good example of what you were.
No, that's exactly what it is, because it's like the whole you're misreligioning me or whatever you want to call it. You're telling me something that I'm not, whether you know it or not. It's not intentional. I don't think. I mean, if someone were to go into a synagogue and go, "Merry Christmas, mother effer," that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone if someone just comes up to you and says, "Hey, Merry Christmas," or have a Merry Christmas, you go, Happy Hanukkah to you.
Southern Law, I see you shaking your head. What do you think?
Oh,
well, I agree with that. That was also, if you end up bringing it back up, we could talk about Biden's military order a little bit too.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up next right after we finish with this. Yeah. Matter of fact, there might be a good jumping off point to that. So we have some super chats about Biden calling up some reserve troops, and I'll go through the super chats and I'll throw it back to Steve so he can let us know what's going on. Why did Biden dismantle Trump's human trafficking task force? I just don't know. Why did the White House remove the human trafficking statistics from their website? Does anyone know? Did anybody heard anything about that?
I can give you a conspiracy theory.
Go ahead, give it to us.
So in my opinion, throughout history, certain institutions value preventing any damage to their own reputation or power more than they do the well-being of children. And in those places, that's a great place to be the kind of person who wants to abuse children. And there are certain institutions now that are that way, right? Mm-hmm. And in fact, part of this movement we're talking about, this whole gender ideology thing, that's a great place to be somebody who wants to be a predator towards children. And because it's aligned with a particular political side, you could see that side, as they have in California, and if this super chat is correct, trying to minimize what we're talking about in terms of child abuse, because that's where they're headed to. Now, they've been in conservative institutions before, schools, daycares, or whatever, but right now, I can't think of a time when it's been better to be a person who wants to abuse young children than right now, where the government is essentially, to the best it can, protecting you in that endeavor.
Interesting.
And to the extent any criminal charges are ever brought, it's the closest thing to a slap on the wrist they can possibly figure out how to muster.
Oh no, I've represented a guy who had some issues.
Yeah, I don't know about
it's
that.
not a slap
I don't
on
know
the
about
wrist.
that one,
Yeah, he was facing some serious time, bro.
I'll tell you, I've read 4 or 5 articles over the last week about people who basically got brought down like for committing offenses against 8, 10, 12 children. I don't who are small children and getting like a year.
Wow.
Now
it
could be because they're women. It could be because it could be that they're treated differently if they're women than if they're men.
Yes.
Because I think that a lot of society tends to not be as bothered if a woman is the sexual abuser, predator of children than if it's a man, which is a weird thing because I don't know why we would think that the child is any less affected based on who the perpetrator is. But
it's like that. Remember, it's like those cheerleader stories, like the cheerleader for the what's it called, for the Cincinnati Bengals, who was a school teacher, slept with one of the kids who was like 15 or 16. He was like, so, and she got charged and she had to do 5 years. So.
Yeah.
Like if I was a 15-year-old, I would be happy. I'm like, oh my God, my teacher is this beautiful cheerleader.
I think that's the mindset. I think
as a society, we think, oh, great for him. But if it was reversed, they'd be like, oh, bad for her. That type of thing.
It's the mom that didn't like it.
Oof. I heard last night that Biden called up reserve troops. Is this correct? Little Rock, and that's for Southern law. So go ahead.
So what I read, at least in terms of what the White House put out, is reserve troops are typically people that are in the National Guard or Army Reserve or whatever they do 2 days a month, 2 weeks a year, but they are also potentially calling up what's called IRR. That's people who get out, okay, and then for a certain number of years after that, they're in what's called the Individual Ready Reserve. And hypothetically, they could be called back to service, but that's extremely rare. I mean, you're talking about somebody that's finished, they're gone, they're out, and I think in the order, Biden said, hey, if you need to call up 450 of those people, you can do it. So I don't know what specialties those people have that suddenly the military may want to call them back from their new civilian jobs and things, put them back into the military. When they're out, they're not in the reserves, regular type of reserves where you would expect that. They're almost home except for this remaining commitment that they have. So it's very rare. I think they did it during the Iraq War and not since. And I mean,
during Gulf War, yeah.
Yeah. So that's unusual. I don't know why they're doing it. Like, who do they need that the military cannot perform an exercise in Europe without pulling into IRR seems bizarre. I'm not trying to make it more than that, but isn't that weird that we pay about $1 trillion a year and we can't support an exercise in Europe without calling up all these people? It's bizarre.
Flux in chat is panicking. Yeah, Flux, the IRR, what's that, usually is 6 years after out processing?
Yeah, I know I'm safe because when I was younger, you could drop me near the enemy. I might be a danger, but now they'd have to drop me on the enemy, and that'd be a danger.
Hey, can I go back to I want to go back to one quick comment to shout out. I'm going to make a shout out, just injected here because I'm privileged, and that is to be on your show, and that is that Weber State won the national cheerleading competition 2023. Weber State out of Utah.
Weber State,
and they won it. It was here in Daytona. So I just want you mentioned cheerleading, and they were great. So
they're great.
Daytona Beach cheerleading champions for the national cheerleading was.
For those of you in Utah, that's proof good things can come out of Ogden, Utah. However, infrequently, good things can come out of Ogden, Utah, which is the largest crap hole in the Western United States.
You guys are crazy. Here, Little Rock. I was a Russian linguist in the Army back in the 80s. I'm glad I am too old, 55, and only have one leg. Oh, sorry about that. But it seems like you're about to kill it with this lawsuit. I cannot be called up. However, Biden may. 55 is young, and you only need one leg to intercept and interpret. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to get back to the super chats in a sec, guys, because we have some more stories that I want to get through. So now we get to the end of the show, and these are the interesting stories. So, first story, we have a woman charged with first-degree murder coming out of New Mexico. So let me just play the tape before I pass it to Steve Southern Law so he can tell us exactly what's going down with this story. So let me cue this up because this is a monster, and making sure Eric's going to be good so he doesn't get. All right, yeah, Eric's going to be good. Woof. Just have had a little concern here.
That's okay. It's not our channel. What do we care?
But all right, so this is PJ. All right, so here we go. This is what happened.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. We came out and we ended up. Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth. What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
All right. So she has just been charged with first-degree murder, child endangerment, and something about the welfare of the child. But I'm going to pass it to Steve, Southern Law, who has more details on this story. So, Steve, tell us what's going on.
So I don't want to, make it too bad because this is a horrible story, and Nate's kind of put out there what happened. Everybody can look at it, take it for what it's worth. But I saw this pop up on social media, and I thought it can't be true at this point. I'd looked it up myself on the New Mexico case lookup. A petition has been filed in one of the districts in New Mexico by an attorney with this young lady here who delivered the baby, and she put the baby in a trash can. The baby suffocated. She put the baby in a trash can in a plastic bag and then put trash on top of it and cleaned up the area. So she was going to try to hide this. The putative father was in the waiting room because she was reported to the hospital with back pain. I don't know why the hospital didn't know she was pregnant. That's about to be significant. Anyway, so yes, she's charged criminally, but in a different district in New Mexico, I think it's a different one. An attorney has filed a petition to have a representative appointed for the child who died in preparation for a wrongful death suit. And she's listed as an interested party, so is the father. And he's not being appointed a personal representative to sue her and the boyfriend. So what I see coming up here is a suit against the hospital for their involvement in this. And that's a proximate cause issue, right? She's going to say she didn't know she was pregnant, but she knows she's pregnant. She knows she's delivering a baby. You don't put a baby in a trash can. You don't wrap it up when it's alive and put it in the bottom of a trash can. And now who in this story deserves a check from this hospital for anything that happened in that scene that Nate just saw? We had a case here in North Carolina kind of similar to this when Wendell Williamson went down the street in Chapel Hill and shot people. Now, he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and I think he was insane, but he also sued his psychiatrist because of a break in his coverage. And the jury in Chapel Hill gave him an award of almost $500,000, but the North Carolina Court of Appeals said, there's a break in the proximate cause here. We're not going to do this, or we won't even be able to get people treated if you're going to be liable for everything your patient does if they don't follow your advice. And to me, this New Mexico case ought to have the same fate, that this girl went in there and delivered the baby, hid the baby, and that's the proximate cause of the baby's demise here, not what the hospital did. That's my opinion. I think it's disgusting.
So just to clear it up, so there's two issues here, right? There's the criminal aspect of the first-degree murder charge, and there's a civil aspect about whether you can sue the hospital. So you're saying that you don't believe the hospital is really culpable in this way civilly because about the proximate cause.
And I'm assuming the hospital, because the status of the litigation right now is just to have a representative appointed for the child, but that would be the solvent entity, right? That they would want to go after. And assuming that's true, I think there's an unclean hand situation here as well as a proximate cause issue. You know what they're going to say about the hospital? You gave her morphine, you treated her for her back pain, and you never figured out she was pregnant. So it's your fault, hospital. That's what will be said here. But to me, if you're going to do that, who would be deserving of the money here? Not that mother that said we talked about this, not the daughter who did it, whatever her circumstances may be, and not the boyfriend who never did anything positive anyway. It looks like it's headed to me in a situation where the old joke comes into play. 99% of the lawyers make the rest of them look bad. Like, do you really need to be teeing up a wrongful death lawsuit right now? Now, if it's part of a criminal defense strategy in coordination with her attorney, I can understand that, but you got to admit that this looks really bad, I think.
Yeah.
To me, you're calling it proximate cause, which I think is one fair way to analyze it. I look at it as an intervening factor. That when you have a bad faith intervening factor,
yes,
assuming there was some level of negligence on behalf of the hospital, when you have some third party who's entering into the mix, who's an intervening factor, acting completely unexpectedly in the way that they're acting. And by the way, not just completely unexpectedly in popping a baby out, or not just unexpectedly in then suffocating that baby, but also even unexpectedly in not volunteering to her medical people providing medical care accurate information as to the status of her body, which she must have known that she was pregnant. So I think, not all women do know. I do know. I have heard of crazy cases like that. But the point is, this intervening factor to me should exonerate any question of liability, because that's just ridiculous.
Well, what do you think? What do you guys think? And I'll go to Steve Gosney, because Steve Gosney is my go-to for criminal law. What do you think of the criminal law aspects of it? Because right now the tension is that why charge her with first-degree murder? Why not charge her with something like involuntary manslaughter or something like this? Is the first-degree murder appropriate? Because again, this could be essentially a death penalty case. Well, I'm not sure if New Mexico has a death penalty, but this could be a life imprisonment.
What state is this in?
This is New Mexico.
Okay, I'm not sure if they have the death penalty there, but yeah, it could be the way we have in Florida, every first-degree murder qualifies for the death penalty. That's one of the problems with the death penalty in Florida. Larger topic. My thought is it's a little different. And I know that I'm the criminal lawyer guy. It's New Mexico law, and it's going to be driven. Prosecutors love to overcharge because then they can feel it's that moral superiority thing we were talking about earlier. There's that same function is going on that I can, I'm going to condemn it more than you. So I'm morally superior, because like somebody says, I disagree with this. Well, everybody disagrees with it. Nobody wants the baby killed, right? So if you say, well, I think it should only be manslaughter, well, you're just such a softie. You're standing up for killers. I'm for first-degree murder. I want that. It's like I can get to the side of you, the morally superior side, and then feel superior about myself because I'm willing to condemn it more than you do. But my kind of initial reaction to this is sadness, but also the fact that mothers in this situation, if any of them happen to be listening, there is so many options. There's so many people that want to adopt a healthy baby. And, if you give birth like this, hiding it like that is not the solution. There's so many people that can't have babies, that want a baby, that there's an option. There's a way out where you can preserve the life and give that baby a free, give them a life to live. And that's the lesson I think that really needs to be drawn. This girl was afraid. She felt isolated. She didn't feel she had any options. But there are great options out there that will make some parents very happy.
Yeah, it's. I think this is a tragic story. I do think the DA may be overcharging here. I think a homicide charge is appropriate, but first-degree murder, I don't know. That's a lot. That's a lot. So, but we'll see how it all kind of pans out. Let me take down a couple of these super chats, and then we have another great story by Legal Vices. He's going to cheer us up with this next story, right, Legal? Right, Vices? Let me read a couple of super chats before we bring it up. I wasn't trying to change the subject on the show. Thank you, Little Rock. You are the best. Don't worry. In Arkansas, 20 years minimum. If it's a woman, boy gets a high five. Remember talking about the difference between men and women when it comes to underage sexual contact with adults. Not to mention Biden's creepy hair sniffing. Yes, and Steve just sent me this. I gotta put it up because it's like right on point. Here it is. No. Steve sent me this with Biden's licking baby. This guy's just crazy. Biden terrorizes young child at Nielsen by licking.
Terrorizes young child.
She did too. If you watch it, oh yeah, this kid is never going to forget this.
Oh my god. No. Biden is so crazy, boy. I don't know. This guy's got I don't know. Even after you retire, you're eligible for recall. Oh, wow. The Army's tough. I was just about to super chat IRR in active reserve. They are not out. They have 8 years in military, 4, 5, or 6 active, and the remainder is IRR. Wow. Whenever you're out, you can't get back in. This one says, is this a specific branch or a mixed call up? Do you guys know?
I think the White House announcement just said they could bring up 450 people. I don't think it designated the
if
branch.
they needed them. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it wasn't even really a call up. I think it was
Right.
just crazy old Joe going, you do it if you need it.
Yeah, it was authorization.
Oh, well, here we go for this question for Nate. The original cons actually outlawed something's Constitution. Originally outlawed slavery. Not true. Well, it all depends on what we're talking about, because we're talking about the Articles of Confederation, which was the original Constitution. It didn't really outlaw slavery because of its really state. It was the states had all the power, and then they fixed that and then made the new Constitution, where originally in the Constitution we live under now, slavery was abolished in it, but then the states rebelled and took it out, and that's when you had all the compromises. So, because you had like the fugitive slave clause, which allowed states to have slavery, but federally slavery was it was like this weird mix of it. So, but it was clearly hidden. No, there was a fugitive slave clause that kind of, we're still allowing slavery. And then we had the Civil War. The usage of the words natural born and other crap broke the idea of who was legally allowed to be treated. The reason why is because when you were a slave, the natural born was because if you were a slave, you were kind of stateless at that particular time. So they were trying to say, okay, well, we're going to give all of these people citizenship instead of trying to go through, individuals. So it was a way of kind of blanketing everybody who was ever in the jurisdiction of the United States with citizenship. That's why they called it natural born citizens, because they technically weren't citizens of the United States, nor were they citizens of the African countries that they were coming from. They were essentially stateless. It is why the Irish and Chinese were exploited. They were definitely exploited. Do you guys have any issues with anything I just said about slaves being stateless at the time, and then they created and blah, 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 blah?
Well, that's something coming from good Irish slave stock now.
Sorry, I read through it, but I want to get to these last couple stories before I have to let my guests go. Southern lawyers deserve that money. Boom. That's right. We're talking about the Mexico case. Capital punishment was abolished in Mexico in 2009. Thank you, Little Rock, for keeping us honest. And Southern law, can you break down the wrongful death petition a bit more, please? Is the case law on this for a similar situation?
What it is right now is they're just asking the court to appoint someone as a personal representative of the dead child. And it says in the case summary, because I didn't call the clerk to get the documents, that it's so they can initiate a wrongful death suit. And so from that, I look at who would you be suing, because as Little Rock says, the lawyers deserve the money and you don't get it unless you sue somebody who's solvent. And so you need somebody with the money, and preferably the more of it, the better. And a hospital is a place that has a lot of money and insurance and things like that. Now, in terms of case law in a similar situation, I think there's a proximate cause issue in it. And I think there's also an issue in it that Joe was talking about with the intervening causes. And you can look to the Wendell Williamson case that I cited. If you want to look to something more recent, the Crumley case up in Michigan is right on the edge of intervening cause and proximate cause issues where the parents being charged, so those kind of things. Proximate cause and intervening is kind of when the law says, yeah, we can find a factual chain of events to link you from A to B, your behavior to the injury, but this is way too whacked out and we're just going to draw the line somewhere. That's kind of what proximate cause is, a fancy way of saying, we're not going to let that happen. And I think this hits that. And partly for the reasons Joe's talking about is the intervening cause analysis that goes on as well.
Right. To distinguish intervening causes is more that even if there is some sort of proximate cause that it is related, because you have this third party actor who's stepping in and taking actions that are beyond your control, beyond your ability to influence, that we're going to strip you of the liability for the results that occurred.
And usually an intentional criminal act that breaks that chain. And so she runs into the bathroom, has this baby, puts him in a trash bag and ties a knot in it, would be a pretty serious intervening act. I think the plaintiff's lawyer would probably say, well, yeah, but she only did it because you gave her painkillers and she was out of her right mind. So you caused the intervening act. That's what they'll say.
I think it's a weak claim, but that's what they will say, though.
Yeah.
Here's the last one. Natural born is used in case law and how to determine president. Yes, it's true. It was always written in. Yes, that's also true. Also, there's a lot of people get confused when we talk about also the birthright citizenship, because there's two kind of ways to achieve it. There's a statutory birthright citizenship and a constitutional birthright citizenship. But a lot of people don't talk about, for instance, if you're in Puerto Rico, Puerto Ricans they have birthright citizenship, but it's through statute, because there's a whole bunch of called the insular cases. So Congress actually passed a statute giving everybody on Puerto Rico citizenship through birthright. So that's one way you can achieve it. And then if you're born in any state in the United States, you get birthright citizenship. But that's a longer conversation. I did a video on it. It's a lot. So let me get this last super chat before we move on to let Legal Vice introduce Steve Gosney. Do you have a join on your channel? Would each of your breakdowns when you are I'm live weekly? I will try to catch you. Also, add join buttons. Steve, this person wants to
how do you add a join button?
You just need to click. If you're monetized, you can just click off on it. That they.
Oh, I just got monetized.
Have your settings.
I just got monetized on YouTube, but I will say that I haven't done a live stream because I've been really busy. Next week I'm going to do a live stream, but my primary.
You don't need to have a live stream to have a join button.
What's that?
You do not need to live stream to have a join button. Many people join channels for whatever reasons, whatever perks you might offer, or to show support for channels that never live stream. So I don't think that.
How do I add a join button? I don't know.
You have to enable members.
Yeah.
Enable members. I'll write it down, but I can't remember. This is just.
I think after the show's over, we could probably spend 5 minutes and walk you through it.
We'll talk you through it. So I gotta push it to my.
But I think he wanted. I think he was asking for each of us to talk about when we live stream. It's not a bad idea. I don't think we talk about our schedule. I don't think it's. I think it's a good idea for us to share our schedules for those who are interested in catching any one or all of us. That this way, people who are not on our channel all the time might have an idea when we go. So just quickly, like Southern, do you have a set schedule, or Nate?
Well, all right, so let's go. Let's go around first. Steve, now you have a channel. Now you're monetized. Let people know where to find you. Even though I usually do this at the end, guys, but I'm going to do it now because
let's do it now. This is good. Thank you very much for the Rumble rant or Super Chat or whatever. All my stuff is stevegosney.com. You'll see my links there. Primarily, my main primary is Rumble because it's a free speech platform. Though I did just get monetized to YouTube, so I'll be doing next something. Usually I'm only doing like once a week. I live stream. I post stuff. I posted a lot of my oral arguments that I've done in appellate work. I've done just to kind of keep people occupied and all kinds of subjects, music, aquaponics, all kinds of stuff. So I don't have a regular schedule, but it's usually 8 o'clock. Usually 8 p.m. is my window in time, which I live stream sometime during the week. But it expands sometimes when I'm not busy. When I'm really busy, it gets down very narrow. But thank you for the very good question.
So, Southern Law, where can the people find you, and what have you been up to?
So on my channel, Southern Law, I usually live stream. I try to make it a practice when I can to do it on Friday morning around 9 or 9:30, and that's the weekly docket where I go over what's happened that week in a cases that people are watching, and try and show as many original documents as I can. If somebody does hit the join button, every 2 weeks I do a live stream for members, and that's a deep dive into a topic that members vote on. Whether I like it or not, they choose it. We get into it, whether it's Miranda rights or the ballistic evidence in the Richard Allen case or whatever. You're going to get court documents, case law, and all that stuff. I will do the research and do that. That's for the people of high taste and discernment who choose to push that join button. And then sometimes on Sunday, electric guitar stuff.
All right. Don't forget, here's the link right in the chat by Ray J. Thank you, Ray, for throwing them. YouTube Southern Law. So let's go to my man Joe. Joe.
Yeah,
when do you live stream? Where can people find you?
Everyone calls me Good Lawgic. That's the name of my channel. I host a nightly show at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Thursday, I call that show The Following Program. And it's usually like a 2-hour show and sometimes might run a little longer, but it's like almost always a minimum of 2 hours. And that is at 10 p.m. Eastern. I also usually stream on Saturday night and Sunday night. That show will start even later, like usually around like midnight my time. During the summer though, I don't stream on Saturday. I don't stream on Saturday nights. So yeah, my next stream is going to be Sunday night. That show the weekend show I call Viewers Discretion. And I try to cover law, politics, and philosophy. And when I say philosophy, it's not like, discussing philosophical perspectives of the ancient Greeks or things like that. It's really a matter of trying to break down how people and societies think and are motivated, and what's really laying beneath the surface of you and me and those the overlords that be. So I urge you guys to check me out. And
Now,
yeah.
now I got to pass the legal vice. It's funny because I have my morning stream that I watch and the night stream I watch. I watch Joe at night and I watch Legal Vice in the morning. Legal Vice is
Interesting.
Tell the people where to find it. Tell people what you do.
Right there, Legal Vices. That's the channel name. Every day, usually starting at around 9 a.m. Eastern time, because it's 10 p.m. my time over here in Korea. So we just do legal things, legal news. Every Monday we do a Maritime Monday because that's the majority of what I do is maritime law. So we do some maritime disasters, mix a little bit of cannibalism in. We had some good traction with the Titan submersible sinking. That treated me very, very well. And we're doing some trials. Right now we're doing the YNW Melly trial, which should be wrapping up soon. But Monday, starting on Monday the 24th, is the Taylor business trial, which we may be talking about here in a second.
We're about to go right to it.
That's what we're doing every Thursday. Is just to kick back. We watch a bit of O.J. Simpson trial from 1995, just for fun. And this Friday, we're doing the F It Friday stream. Where we just we just say F it, we just talk about things.
Well, with that said, let's get back to the story that.
Where can people find you, Nate? Where can people find you?
Yeah, where can we find you?
Just Google Nate the Lawyer, and you'll find me here on YouTube. I cover a cadre of different topics, but my whole thing is really holding the media accountable for the lies that they tell. So Nate the Lawyer, just type in Nate the Lawyer, and you'll find me. Thank you for reminding me. I've totally forgot about to even talk about myself. But here we go. We're going to move to the story from Legal Vices, which is a crazy story. Vices. Tell us what it's about. Put it on screen. Here we go.
How do I do this and try to save Eric's channel here? Taylor Business, not her real name.
Really?
I believe her real name was Coronado. But yeah, great name to choose though. Taylor Business. She was married with a very young child, but she had a boyfriend. Her and her boyfriend liked to do drugs, allegedly. They were allegedly hopped up on a amazing cocktail of marijuana, methamphetamines, and I believe trazepam. Sort of like a cocktail of things you would never want to mix with each other.
Wait, is trazepam the stuff that turns the frogs? Is turning the frogs?
Probably. It's a horse tranquilizer, I believe. I actually believe it's like a horse tranquilizer.
Please continue.
So they decided to go back to his place. He lived in his parents' basement. Surprise, surprise. They decided to get into a little kinky lovemaking. So they brought out the dog collar and chains. He decided to go first with the chain. She wrapped the chain around his neck, decided to be a little aggressive, started to choke him out. Then she allegedly blacked out. Then when she came to, she was still choking him, decided she wanted to continue doing that because, as she told the police, have you ever loved someone so much you wanted to kill it? Or she also told the police she just wanted to see what would happen. She'd gone that far. She just wanted to see what would happen. So eventually he passed away. Then she decided, God, how do I go into this part?
Blissfully in his sleep.
She took one of their pleasure toys and proceeded to use it on his corpse for 3 hours. She severed his junk and did things with that for a while. Then she used 7 different knives allegedly to chop up his body. She didn't do her friend any favor by putting a part of a leg in her friend's van. She told the police, good luck finding all of the parts. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle at this point. Most of the parts should be in the house, she said. But then apparently she decided it was time to leave. So she leaves the house early in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Mom upstairs hears the door slam, comes down to see if her son had left. She walks down to the bottom of the stairs, sees a bucket with a blanket on it at the bottom of the stairs, says, I don't remember leaving a bucket with a blanket at the head of the stairs. Mom takes the blanket off and sees her son's severed head in a bucket. Then she sees his severed head in the bucket as well. And as she told the police when they were asking her about this, she said, oh, damn, I can't believe I forgot the head. So yeah, she's charged with first-degree murder, mutilation of a corpse, and SA in that order. Yeah. Wow. So she, the police didn't really have a big difficult time figuring out who may be responsible for this. So they went to her house. She comes out of her house with a shirt soaked in blood all over her hands and whatnot. And they say, "Do you have any idea why we're here?" And she says, "It probably has something to do with the arrest warrant." And they said yes, and they took her off to the police station, where she gave this very, very helpful statement where she corrected some misperceptions that the law enforcement officers had in the scene of the crime. So the trial is going to trial on Monday, the 24th, scheduled for 5 days because there's not a lot to talk about. They're pleading not guilty by reason of mental illness or a defect, which is the Wisconsin version of insanity. So they're not denying she did it. That's kind of hard to deny. They're just saying she did not appreciate it was a crime at the time she did all of these things, which I think sort of loses a lot of weight when she goes to all that trouble to hide all of the body parts in different places and then goes, "Oh my God, I forgot the head. How terrible of me." So I think she's going to, so right now they're trying to, they've gone through 4 evaluations to see if she's competent to stand trial. 3 of them, the first one was the public defender. They got a freebie at the beginning. Then he said, "Well, we want a second opinion." The judge said, "Go ahead, at your own dime. We're not going to play this game. If you want to pay for it and do it." Their own expert said she's fit to stand trial. Then they decided, that's when they changed their plea to not guilty by reason of mental, whatever it was, the insanity defense. That automatically triggered another evaluation. And now they've just done another one, said, "Well, that was done in November and it's been a long time and her brother died in the meantime. We need to do it again." They did one this last week, and the judge is very adamant about going to trial on the 24th. They did one this week where the defense's own expert surprisingly found her not competent to stand trial. But surprise. But the court also appointed another examiner to examine her, and this is how confident the judge is that is going to trial. Jury selection is scheduled for the late morning or early afternoon of the 21st. The court-appointed psychologist will be testifying on the morning of the 21st, right before a jury selection. So I think that it's going to trial on the 24th. And I'll be covering it gavel to gavel.
He's taking a grinder a little too seriously.
Let's see her attack her attorney.
Yes, this is her fake attack on the attorney. I bet if I do this, they'll really think I'm crazy and not make me stand trial. I love this judge too. Not really throwing the elbows.
They don't got no backup coming?
Oh no, she wasn't really struggling.
It's probably the most action this guy's got all week.
Oh wait, what do you mean by that?
And see, she supposedly flipped out and doesn't remember. It's like, "Do you know what happened?" She's like, no, I don't know what happened. But calmly, she quickly regained her composure, and I ain't buying it.
So seems like she's going to jail for a very, very long time. That's what it sounds like.
That's what if she's competent, she's going to trial, and then it's does she spend the rest of her life locked up in a mental ward somewhere, or does she do it in just the Gray Bar Hotel? I think.
All right, Steve Gosney, tell us why we should not remove her from the planet. Sell us on it. Come on.
Well, the issue is, are you saying should she get the death penalty or should she not?
Well, I think that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Death and
that's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying.
Well, people, there's a book on this, called.
Where would I find such a book? I need to check this.
And who wrote it?
You can only get it. Oh, let's good date. You can only get it at stevegosney.com. It's called Death Penalty Debates, and it weighs the pluses and minuses of the death penalty. It's a public policy matter. So if you really want to be an educated person, have an educated opinion, and not just an emotional reaction to the death penalty, get this book and decide for yourself. I have an opinion, but I also have an experience. I do death penalty appeals. I do trial teams. I do death penalty jury selections. I do death penalty team consulting, basically for our homicide capital team in trials. And so I'm very involved in this issue. And I've got about 20 net negatives and about 10 net positives, which are summarize all of the arguments as well as common examples used by proponents and opponents. And then it allows you to put it on your own individualized scale of justice. It's a very short read, about less than 100 pages, and you can read it and then really understand the issue in a way that your friends and family will not. So you'll be armed to the teeth. SteveGosney.com. Go get death penalty debates available only for me.
Yeah, and Steve, you're so effective and persuasive. I'm not kidding you. Phenomenal advocacy against capital punishment, and so much so that you really moved the needle significantly for me personally. I'm not kidding. You really, really did.
Thank you very much.
But then Taylor's Your Business comes along.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I try to steel man the arguments, because I do provide all the list in the book. There's a list of people that it's like, well, would you kill this guy? Would you kill this guy? Right. And obviously these facts are very shocking. And most people would say, well, yes, that should get the maximum penalty. The question is, should the maximum penalty be life in prison without parole or the death sentence? And in that case, the problem is that it's a system. So by empowering the state to kill business, you're also empowering the state to convict innocent people that aren't guilty. There are a lot of other stuff. So you have to weigh both sides of it, because you don't get to pick for yourself. You are empowering the state to do that picking for you. And you know how we love prosecutors here.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me get through a couple of these more. I think we have like 5 or 6 more super chats, and then we got one more fun little story, and then we are out of here for the day, guys. This is from Jim. What about the gas station cashier in Michigan who is charged with manslaughter for locking door of two-stop thief who then shot customers? Crumbly precedent. So gas station attendant locks the door for two people stealing, and those 2 people shoot people in the store, and the clerk is charged with manslaughter. What do you guys think?
I will say one interesting, precedent has different meanings depending on who's saying it and all that. But in terms of the Court of Appeals decision in the Crumbly case, because it is so close on this intervening factor and proximate cause analysis, they say in it, I think more than once, this case is not precedent for anything else. It's a unique set of facts, which, puts you right on the margin in a criminal case when the Court of Appeals is saying, we're going to let this one slide by, but no one else can use this again in the future. So I'm not saying it's not practically a precedent like the super chat is saying, but legally, at least, the Court of Appeals has said, don't quote this for anything else other than this case. But now, having said that, I'm against this situation as this person being charged personally.
And isn't that the court effective way of actually bypassing habeas corpus and saying we're going to allow you to punish this person in a way that's not consistent with law?
Well, I think to me that's a reasonable thing to think about it. Although I guess it's going up to their Supreme Court, and really they probably ought to weigh in when you have the decision saying what it said.
A lot of times too, for those of you who like to read court cases and appeals, you'll see what they call unpublished opinion. And when you see unpublished opinion, that's what those opinions are for, not really precedent for other things. Even though sometimes you can get away with using it, but generally that's what they're for. And I think that's what the Crumbly opinion was. I think it was unpublished. I joined Southern Law. Man, you are cheap for an attorney. LOL. This is Little Rock. I joined Good Logic. He is a true attorney. I not a month. I also joined Legal Vices.
No, okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
A member of Nate the Man. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you, Little Rock. Thank you, brother.
Little Rock again. I'm a dedicated Viva fan, but I try to watch when I can. I do run a law office, and have to bring in the money for the wife. LOL. Here we go. Little Rock again. Besides Joe, I have seen him. Are the rest of you doing Attorney Reacts on Attorney Tom's show? I'm planning on doing it, but I haven't started doing it now. Attorney Reacts is that you watch police videos and you react to it. And Attorney Tom, he gives you he revenue shares with us, so it's pretty nice. Joe's done a couple too, right?
Yeah, I had one that went viral on Facebook.
Yeah,
but it got like 3 million views on Facebook, which I've never had a video that's gotten more than like 100,000 views. So yeah, he was like shared the link with me, and it was like 15 minutes work I did, and presumably 97 hours of phenomenal editing to make it look as good as it did by the time it came out. But not by me. I'm saying by his team there, which really did a phenomenal job editing.
His team is phenomenal too. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure that if Attorney Tom really thought really hard, he might recall that I exist.
You know, I'll look because he's always asking for more people to join. So I'll send if you guys want to after the show, we'll talk about it now. We'll hook it up. I'll hook it up. She should have done that with the jury present. That would have triggered a mistrial.
She might do it.
Yeah.
The only way anyone's going to know, you have to watch Jeff's stream of the trial.
Right.
That's true. That's true. It is better for 99 men to go free than one innocent man lose his liberty. I agree with that. I was a big death penalty guy until taking wrongful convictions in law school. Yeah. There was one I took too, which was like, it's shaking me on the death penalty, even though I still think it has its place. But I'm a lot less, especially now speaking with Steve, because Steve, the problem is that Steve is so conservative on so many issues, but this issue, it's like, what? And then it's like, oh. Then he makes his argument. I'm like, okay, you know what? He's not wrong. It's just a good argument because I'm like,
And one of the things about Steve is like he's not going to talk me out of thinking that some people deserve to be offed, but when he talks about how the penalty is applied, the issues with the system and stuff like that, I have to slow it all down there and go, that stuff makes a lot of sense to me. So I don't want to agree with him, but he's too reasonable.
Yeah, and and Nate made a great point about how he's approaching it, because it's actually using conservative arguments to basically say this is why we should not have the death penalty. Because if you're someone leaning from the right, you're like, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the way they have a selection process. They can go after who they want, when they want to. They can target people. And do I really want to give them the authority to just go hog wild, not just to taking a man's liberty, but to actually putting him to death? That's a pretty serious concern for anyone on the right.
Now, last story of the day, I want to end on something light because we've been talking about death, and murder and mayhem. So this is something light. This is something that happened with the police commissioner in Detroit, Michigan. You guys will be hearing about. So check this out.
May face serious consequences.
Yeah, but he says the whole thing is a misunderstanding. Fox News' Robin Murdoch is live with more on the allegations that he's facing.
Yeah, good morning, Ryan and Jay. There are always two sides to a story, and this is two very different sides.
Hooker side
to
and the
story.
John
As
side.
you guys know, the Board of Police Commissioners, the whole idea behind this is to provide oversight for police officers to make sure that they are conducting themselves appropriately. Well, now it is a Detroit police commissioner whose conduct is in question. This after Commissioner Brian Ferguson was cited for indecent and obscene conduct. Now, that ticket stems from what undercover officers from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office saw when they pulled up on Ferguson's truck parked in the area of Sorrento and Schoolcraft on the city's west side. This happened about 7 o'clock yesterday morning, and that is when they found a known prostitute allegedly performing a sex act. Now, Ferguson at that point did identify himself as a police commissioner and asked those officers to help him out. That name drop, though, it did not work. Ferguson, who later told media outlets that this was a misunderstanding, that the woman unexpectedly jumped into his truck and that he was trying to kick her out with a captain with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
At that time, Mr. Brian Ferguson stepped out, identified himself as a Detroit police commissioner. A title or position doesn't make him above the law.
Now, Ferguson did release a statement, and again, he says that the allegations, they are untrue and that this is a big misunderstanding. He also says that I do not want this personal matter to become a distraction from the important oversight work that the board has to do. For that reason, I'm making the decision to step back from board meetings for a time, end quote. And there is...
Well, just to be clear, he has currently resigned. After some more information came out, so he is gone. So we've had in Detroit, unfortunately, the police commissioner was caught at 7 a.m. with the prostitute who allegedly just jumped in his car randomly.
Almost
just a second. 7 a.m., bro. Come on. Maybe they would have had a little more sympathy. It was like 2, but 7 a.m. That's like on your way to work.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's you know what? It's funny because the problem is that he tried to name drop it to get out, but he couldn't. They still arrested him, but like. To me, what about that cop that had to make that arrest? He's come to I'm the commissioner of the police. It's like that. Like you got to have some balls to just continue to go through it. You know what I mean?
Well, I believe the guy. I mean, cocaine jumps into the White House, $10 million jumps into Hunter's bank account. Why can't a prostitute jump into a police commissioner's truck?
It's surrounded.
That's great.
Well, this is the last one, but this one comes from the good state of Georgia, right next to Florida, where Steve is at. This is the mayor from BLM. This is a BLM mayor who's just been arrested for burglary. The first BLM mayor.
I'm shocked.
You're shocked? No. Here it is.
See, I'm just too old and from the West. I will to the day I die. BLM means Bureau of Land Management. That's I have to like process that out of my brain.
South Fulton Mayor Khalid Kamau. Yesterday, the charges in Fulton County Court were listed as criminal trespassing and burglary in the first degree, but today, a 13-page document obtained by this television station works to offer more context and explanation behind the charges. Erica Murphy has more tonight from South Fulton on what is contained in the reports.
According to the documents obtained by 11 Alive, Khalid Kamau is alleged to have made his way onto private property along Cascade Palmetto Parkway sometime before 7 a.m. on Saturday. On site are a residence and a lake house, which the owner says is mostly used for storage. The owner of the property tells law enforcement surveillance cameras detected Kamau walking up the driveway and eventually inside that lake house. After calling 911, the property owner made his way close enough to make contact with Kamau, ordering him to, quote, stay put. The property owner admitted to carrying a firearm at the time, but that Kamau didn't say that he was a South Fulton mayor until after it was by his side. The warrants go on to say when Kamau came outside, he allegedly rejected those orders, going as far as to tell the property owner, quote, you can't give me orders. Do you know who the blank I am? I'm the mayor, and I'll wait for my police force to get here. When South Fulton police made contact with Kamau, he told law enforcement he was driving by the Cascade Palmetto Parkway property at the time and that it was his, quote, dream house. The criminal warrant states that Kamau was aware he was criminally trespassing at the time, but he alleged it was the property owner who was aggressive. Kamau also told authorities that the property owner had a firearm, but alleged that the owner told Kamau, quote, if you take another step, I'm going to shoot you. According to Kamau, it was not until after he was walking away from the property owner that he identified himself as the mayor. Today, 11 Alive attempted to talk with Kamau about what happened, but
If
no
that's your
answer
dream
was
house, you need to
provided.
aim higher. That's like almost a realistic house.
So that mayor, he's a self-proclaimed socialist. They actually passed a city resolution claiming racism is a public health emergency, needs to be stopped now, and he's refusing to resign, saying that the property owner was against him and all this other stuff. So this mayor, should he resign? He's saying no, this is all crap, and it's up to the people to determine if he should resign or not. I don't know. I think he has to go. I think everybody here thinks he probably has to go.
I think he's lucky to be alive, let alone go.
The aggressive property owner.
Well, yeah, but gunpoint. But you know, if you're on my property, of course I'm gonna hold you at gunpoint, right? If you're in the middle of the night, you're just ruffling around. I don't know who you are. Talking about he's all. Of course, that's the reason why we got a Second Amendment. Thank God for the Second Amendment.
If you're still alive, he wasn't that aggressive.
So with that said, we got politicians acting badly, things happening to people in certain states, first-degree murder for after-birth abortion, if you can call it that, and we have the indictments happening down. So if you guys like what you heard, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. Don't forget to visit the various channels of the panelists, because they do come here off of their own good free time, and we really, really appreciate it. Now, Eric's going to be back next week. This is probably going to be my last week hosting, but I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I want to thank everybody in the chat. Don't forget, visit these other channels, and please support these gentlemen because they do fabulous work. I watch their content, and I believe you will enjoy it too. So for Steve Gosney, Southern Lord, Good Logic, and Legal Vices, my name is Nate the Lawyer, and we are going to see you next time. Peace.